This is Co-op HD1 HD3 Hornsby, radio for people, not for profit. Welcome to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Each week, we explore how your library is more than books. The library is knowledge, technology, and inspiration for our community. Hello, hello. We are your hosts today, Kanya Lyons and Mike Wheat.
That's right, and you're listening to Volume, the Austin Public Library radio show. And man, today we're bringing virtual to reality. You normally get to hear this gentleman in all our event listings, but live and in person, we've got the super famous, wonderful reference librarian Blair Parsons in the house.
Hey,
Welcome.
Michael. Hey, Kanya. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on finally.
Of course. Happy to be here.
So, Blair, we're going to do the same thing with you that we do with a lot of our guests. We're going to get to know you.
Sure.
Where are you from? Are you from Texas?
Yeah, I'm I think an 8th generation Texan, but
Right.
my paternal grandmother's from Oklahoma, so my mom, she's negated the 8th generation. So I don't know what I am other than my whole life here, grew up in Dallas.
But at some point, your family wised up and moved south.
Some point, yeah. She married a Texan. Yeah.
That's right. So, what? We don't have to talk about national. I'm just curious. Is it Czech background or something that old? Being in Texas.
I don't know. My full name's Blair Parsons, so that's about as English as you can get.
Nice.
So what brought you to Austin? When did you move here?
I moved here in '98 for undergrad and got lucky, stayed for grad school. Got lucky again, got a job at the Austin Public Library, and I've been here ever since.
Man, right out of grad school into this job.
Right out of grad school.
And killing it like you do.
So that's, when did you first visit the Faulk Central Library?
Ooh, good question. Definitely undergrad, and then I started volunteering there as a reference volunteer in grad school. So I started working with the city, or with the library in 2004, but I think 2003 I was officially a volunteer. So.
Oh, cool.
So school brought you to Austin, and where's the rest of the family at?
Definitely school. I always wanted to come live in Austin, and particularly come to the University of Texas. My family's grand tradition is the high school state track meet, which is every May. So we always came down for that. It provided a weekend on campus, and just always dreamed about it. And then,
So you grew up close to UT or in Austin?
I grew up in Dallas, but I guess I've always known I was a Longhorn. Came for school and just really loved it. And I'm really thankful to get to be here and do the great work that the Austin Public Library does.
Yeah, we are glad to have you too.
Well, so you used the Faulk Library back in its heyday, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do you think it compares to the new library we're about to open soon?
Faulk, you have to grow to love. Brutalism isn't. Faulk and brutalist architecture isn't something that is inherently objectively aesthetically appealing. I grew to love it, and I love traveling the U.S. and seeing civic brutalist buildings around. Boston City Hall is just fantastic. It looks like an alien landed.
Yeah.
But the difference with the new Central Library is there's no acclimation. There's no having to learn to love it. It's incredible from the
Pretty
get-go.
awe-inspiring.
Yeah,
First glance.
Faulk, I grew to love its dark spots. It's all that, but the new Central Library it glows. I'm really I'm not alone on this, but I'm really motivated by natural light and how space is inviting for people and how it engenders conversation. And the new Central Library certainly does that. It glows. It's full of natural light. It's full of spaces of solace and meditative, contemplative spaces for individuals, and then dynamic spaces for us to interact, just like if the three of us found a corner or if 300 of us sat down for some sort of community engagement.
Yeah, lots of cool textures and little corners to find to sit. It makes you just want to sit and talk.
Yeah, definitely.
It's an eyeful, like every which way you look, and it's super inspiring. Like you walk in and you're just like, oh yeah, I want to study and read and just live in this space.
Yeah, exactly. This morning I got to work and thought, I haven't been on the rooftop in a week. So we're swamped getting ready to open for October 28th, but I dropped everything and went and spent 3 minutes and just took a few deep breaths and thought about how wonderful the gift of this space is to the city. Yeah,
there's going to be plenty of spots for just refuge from day-to-day grind.
And it's for the people. I keep saying that, but it's so amazing to me that we're going to have this incredible, beautiful architectural marvel that is for the people, everyone in Austin, people passing through Austin, everyone is, going to be welcome at the library, and that's just so special.
It's nice to have a high-rise balcony downtown overlooking the lake that I can actually afford to go to.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're just joining us, listeners, this is Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show on Co-op 91.7 FM and streaming at koop.org. We have show details online at library.austintexas.gov/volumes. And we're talking here today with Reference Librarian Blair Parsons, who works at the new Central Library, which will be opening very soon. When I say soon, I mean Saturday, October 28th. The doors to the building will be flung open at around 1 p.m. and it'll be open until 6 p.m. And from there on, we'll be open 7 days a week. And the schedule's online and stuff. But Blair, let's get into a little bit more of a heady discussion here.
Sure.
Can you talk a little tiny bit about how libraries support free thought?
Yeah, definitely. So it all began with Ben Franklin and the Philadelphia Free Library, and the idea that we throw off the shackles of oppression, I guess, and within that, let's include intellectual oppression. And one of the great things this country has done is the development of free public libraries. It's ingrained within the fabric of what a community is. I like to go up to Vermont with my wife, and there are communities up there, tiny, tiny little communities that have a public library on either side of the main street. So if you get snowed in, depending on which way the snow is going, there's access to a library.
Oh.
Yeah.
And to see the manner in which we commit to what a public library is, and it's not just books. It's not just four ceilings, a wall. And
It's a pillar of society.
Yes.
Right. And the beauty for me of the public library and what keeps me so engaged is certainly the community engagement, the connection, the way that we assist folks. But it's also how we evolve as an institution. We rarely cease doing anything. We just continue to add more complexity, which is wonderful. And it can be stressful as staff and stressful to communicate, but then it's incumbent upon us to communicate what the modern public library is.
Right, and life is full of all those different unknowns. So if it wasn't mimicking life or we weren't doing the right job, I don't think it would be as difficult sometimes as it is.
Exactly, yeah. The world becomes more complex, and we're a pluralistic society, and we add complexity, and we reflect our communities, and we provide the space and the content and the connection points to engage with each other.
Yeah, what I've always loved about the library is, you got an organization or business, they typically have a demographic, and we really strive to reach out to every demographic,
Right,
every person
definitely.
from, homeless to the guy on the mansion hill.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the new Central Library has something for everyone: working professionals, families, students, young people, seniors. I mean, really, it's just got a little bit of everything. Well, we are. I want to start talking about something, and then we're going to take a break, and then we can kind of finish talking about it after the break. So I wanted to see if you could start to help me unpack this statement. So while proponents of intellectual freedom work to prohibit acts of censorship, calls for censorship are valued as free speech. And that's a little nugget that I found on the American Library Association's website in their sort of freedom to read, intellectual freedom section.
Yeah, that's a great one. A major tenet, a foundational tenet of a pluralistic democratic society is creating the space for us to be able to disagree with each other,
Right.
to comport ourselves well. Sometimes we fail to do that, but it's an eternal striving to comport well, to be able to interact with each other and share a plurality of ideas within that pluralistic society. And that's what's so incredible to me as far as what public libraries are and do. We provide that access point to each other and our differences, and access to different ideas through the materials we provide.
Yeah, I mean, discourse, without that discourse, we would just all fall into complacency at some
Yeah.
point. I mean, those who were willing to put in the effort to take control would have the control, and those who don't say anything just get swallowed up.
Exactly.
So once again, this is Co-op Radio, 91.7 FM, and we are Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. We're about to play an excerpt from episode 24 of the library's Austin Creates podcast that features an interview with hip-hop artist Kid Jones. that Aaron Negron actually did this interview, and it's really inspiring because they talk about how hip hop is inspired by storytelling.
Yeah.
So let's listen to that clip,
Yeah,
and then
kids,
we'll
you
finish
wanna-
this conversation with Blair.
This is the Library Podcast, and books, literature, what kind of role has that played in your life?
Definitely played a big role in my life. Like all through school, like, I was a big like English buff guy, and I think if it wasn't for me being introduced to reading books and storytelling and things like that, I wouldn't have like this wide range imagination of things. I remember in English, like my teachers would always be like my writing was, like I had like bad punctuation, but like my creativity and the words I would say and the writing, it would just come from, weird places. I would just be able to just write and go. I wouldn't even have to, think about what I was writing. I just could just like, like write a whole script, and just kind of just lay it out. And so, and I think that came from just, early on, like really, digging into the, just reading books. But, I definitely want to get back into it. I'm always asking my wife, like, I need a good book. But yeah, I grew up, going to that, the Austin Library. My grandma used to, we used to catch the bus from the South Austin. She used to take me down there all the time, and, we'd check out books and, just everything. That was a place, where I definitely spent a lot of time in there. Yeah. So that was cool too.
I see Tupac right there. The more I talk to people, the more I see this really strong connection, particularly in hip hop, where storytelling is such an element of the art. This connection with hip hop artists and liking books, liking reading and writing, and
no, yeah, I definitely think it does stem from that place, because without like books and things like that, like letting you just like free your mind, like sometimes like you growing up and you in bad situations, but then you go to school or you go somewhere where someone's giving you a book to read, or even if they're reading to you and it's taking you out of that place for a moment, and that kind of gets addicting. Yeah. You just want to go to fairy tale land, whenever things are bad, or whenever you just, need a break from life, or just, reality, period. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think people, as children do have a grasp on reality, but sometimes, like, you just want to get out. Mm-hmm. And, I think books is a perfect escape. Definitely if you, instilling that into, your child. It is cool to imagine things and, get creative in your reading, and, it expands the brain, and, it's like the best thing. You gotta feed the brain,
Totally. I think a part of what I hear you saying too is, especially when you're a kid and maybe you only know the world around you, the world that you live in, reading books and these stories of other places in the world or people that do other things that maybe you don't see people doing around you, it does expand your mind and lets you know there's more out there than just exactly what you see right in front of you. And so you could be a part of that too. It's possible.
Definitely. Yeah, man. It definitely got me out there. I remember probably like 3rd or 4th grade reading about the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah. And I was just like, what? There's something out there like that for real?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, it's just like amazes you. And yeah, that always stuck with me to, I still have like a fascination with the Bermuda Triangle and still learning, new things about it every day. So
that's awesome. Well, thanks for your time, Kid Jones. Where can people find information about you? They want to know where you're performing. They want to hear your music.
You can find everything about me at my website. It's www.kidjones.com. That's KYDDJONES.com. Yep.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thank y'all, man. Yeah.
My name is Blair Parsons, and I'm a reference librarian at the Central Library. Each week, I highlight a few programs for adults that are happening around the Austin Public Library. Our full list of programs may be found on the library's events calendar. Friday, October 20th, the City of Austin's Small Business Program will offer a Biz Aid business orientation at the Terrazas Branch Library. The orientation will provide an overview on how to open a small business or reimagine an existing one, as well as discuss key questions entrepreneurs should ask. Biz Aid business orientation is from 11 to 12:30, Friday, October 20th, at the Terrazas Branch Library. On Saturday, October 21st, the Twin Oaks Branch Library will host a program titled Everyday Healing Power of Herbs and Plants. Autumn Schultz, a herbal medicine practitioner and certified health coach, will discuss tools to improve health, meditation, and vitality. The program will be 3 o'clock to 4:30, Saturday, October 21st, at the Twin Oaks Branch Library.
Hey there, Austin. Teen Program Specialist Michael Harley from the Downtown Central Library here. We're breaking out the books this week for Teen Book Club, where teens can discuss new and exciting titles from the library's collection. This week, Teen Book Club is going back in time with Mackenzie Lee's A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. In this historical fiction adventure, young aristocrat Henry Monty Montague and his friends find themselves on the run across Europe after a seemingly petty theft goes awry. Tackling racism, sexuality, gender, special needs, and many other themes, A Gentleman's Guide is sure to keep a book club talking. The Spicewood Springs branch will be discussing A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue on Thursday, October 19th from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Participants in Teen Book Club can place a hold on the title and have a copy of the book delivered to any Austin Public Library for pickup. More details for these and additional programs can be found at library.austintexas.gov/events.
This is Ann Minner, Managing Librarian at the Old Quarry Branch. I get to highlight an Austin Public Library event happening for children this week. Literature Live is the Austin Public Library's own puppetry and storytelling troupe. They create and perform shows throughout Austin's library system, in addition to special shows for schools and museums. The puppeteers are masters of bringing literature to life through puppetry, storytelling, song, and movement, helping to form a lifelong bond between children and reading. Lit Live has been making the rounds performing Strega Nona this season, the hilarious tale of a wise old woman, a magic pasta pot, and a foolish young man who learns the hard way that sometimes there really can be too much of a good thing. This show is based on a book by Tommy DePaula. This week's performances are Thursday, October 19th at 6:30 p.m. at the Manshack Road Branch, Friday, October 20th at 2:15 p.m. at the St. John Branch, Tuesday, October 24th at 3:30 p.m. at the Twin Oaks Branch, and Wednesday, October 25th at 3:30 p.m. at the Spicewood Springs Branch. Details and additional performance dates are at library.austintexas.gov/literature-live.
Support for Co-op comes from Beat the Rush, a monthly live music series at the Blanton Museum of Art. On Thursday, October 19th at 5:30 p.m., the Blanton presents a performance of violins and electronica by Caleb Polishek. The Blanton is located at the intersection of Congress Avenue and Martin Luther King Boulevard. More information can be found at blantonmuseum.org. You're listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show on Co-op 91.7 FM and KOOP.org. Radio for people, not for profit. Support comes from Austin Seance, hosting their Halloween series at the Vortex Pony Shed, located at 2307 Manor Road, October 19th through 22nd and October 26th through 31st. Hosts Albert Lucio and Jake Cardero examine the history of the American spiritualist movement. They demonstrate tools used by working mediums and then employ those tools in a modern-day recreation of an old-time seance. More information and tickets at austinseance.com.
Ooh, that sounds spooky. Welcome back to Volumes. Just before the announcements, we did get to hear an excerpt of an interview with hip-hop artist Kid Jones with our own Aaron Negron. And man, I really like his message. You know, yeah, kids, if you want to spit stories, you've got to know stories. And you don't want to be running out of material, so keep reading other material.
We got those stories at the library.
We got lots of stories.
It's all about stories.
So yes, we are back with our guest, Blair Parsons.
Hello.
Hello. And Blair, I've been thinking about something you've told me a long time ago, and I just wanted to talk to you about it, if you don't mind if we get off tangent a little bit. You told me that you're from a family of lawyers. The majority of your family is lawyers, and you went to library school.
Yeah, dad, uncle, brother, all attorneys.
Wow. So what happened growing up that you were like, I don't want to do that?
That's not for me. Seeing him walk in the door after a long day of being a corporate attorney, I guess. No, my dad was a really wonderful model. He passed away in 2010, but he was an avid reader. He modeled reading, so I always grew up. Even when I wasn't that into reading, I saw it happening in the house, and we would go to the beach, and that's how he'd spend the day. He'd wake up and go for a run, then we'd hang out at the beach and read.
And I want to point out, that's a good point, that it doesn't even have to be something he was forcing on you, but just seeing it around your house all the time, you knew that reading was important.
Absolutely, yeah. Just seeing books in the home, seeing library books in the home, and just seeing people that you care about and your mentors engaging with reading and taking that time for themselves, I think is really important.
Absolutely.
But the lawyering thing, I thought about it, but ultimately it wasn't for me. I wanted to be a teacher, I thought, and then I student taught and realized real quickly that I didn't like the forced environment, not to denigrate teaching by any means, but it wasn't 30 kids that I was responsible for in the given moment. It wasn't for me. I realized I liked the one-on-one interactions. Yeah. And that's what I really like about the library, that everyone I interact with, for the most part, is there because they want to be there. Yeah. So we start from a positive interaction to begin with. And at that point, then my obligation and my opportunity is to assist them with what they need. And that's really enriching for me.
That makes sense. You are a very approachable guy. It would make sense that you want to put yourself in an accessible position.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And a final thought, if you don't mind, about my dad and what he modeled for me. He was a corporate attorney, but his abiding top belief was that everyone has a right to their opinion, that a free society is predicated on the exchange of dialogue and flow. And he dreamed about retiring and working for the ACLU pro bono or in some capacity, just to further engender everyone's access to free information and free speech.
Right.
So he did inspire you to become a librarian. He just didn't mean to.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
And he taught you inadvertently that pendulum swings both ways.
Yeah.
Well, so since we're kind of talking about that already, why do you think it's important for libraries to support free thought and have books and materials that express or showcase a diverse sort of range of perspectives?
Sure. Yeah. Just from my own life, I find the library an incredibly wonderful place to work at and to spend my life. And from a very selfish standpoint, every day, but ultimately selfish, but then also selfless, because the more I learn about myself, the more I can help others. But the self-engagement and self-understanding that the library allows me to engage with informs my life. It makes my life better, and it makes me more capable of connecting with community members, whether that be in the library or outside the library. And an aspect of that I really like is that, in a sense, since the world is our oyster at the library, we have content that covers every topic. Anything that I learn or anything I engage with, in some capacity, makes me better able to assist someone. And that's a really, really powerful and valuable thing that I really appreciate about my work and the opportunity to get to do the work I do. As far as providing broad access, and I can't remember the phrase you used, Kanya, but...
I think I said free thought. I mean, I guess the idea is that there's something that will offend everyone in your public library,
Exactly.
basically. And we like it that way.
Right. Yeah, the free...
You can't please everybody.
Right. And the good news is that we that's a fundamental tenet of our country. So by and by, most people agree that access to free thought and broad content is good. But there are opportunity or situations in which that there's content that's challenged, and it's our responsibility then to listen, but also convey the importance of continuing to provide the diversity of thought and be respectful of the pluralist community.
Yeah, I think humans' nature is to constantly keep chasing for this ultimate comfort, and sometimes information can be uncomfortable. Sometimes truth can be uncomfortable, and so we kind of, as society, steer towards more entertainment and kind of lose track. And so when we're in a situation we find ourselves now where we're trying to balance out, are some statues worthy of keeping? Is it removing history? Whatever. And I don't want to get onto that political topic, but there is a side of, if you're not aware of it, how do you know to be cautious of it?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I try to spin things positively in order to as an effort to understand not only myself, but where someone's coming from. And if someone cares enough about something to challenge it, in a sense, they're engaging with it. Yeah. Or at least there's an opportunity to engage.
And they're using their right to express free speech too. Saying that should be banned and we should, that's a form of expression too, and we respect that, but doesn't necessarily mean we're going to take books off of our shelves.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
I didn't mean to cut you off though. What were you trying? I'm so sorry.
We all get a little heated up.
Didn't mean to hijack your statement. But yeah, it really is like if you don't agree, it's great to express that you don't agree with a book or an idea or whatever material you might find anywhere in the world. But that's all part of the free speech and the dialogue that we're talking about. Yeah. And it's really important that we talk about, why do you object to these ideas? Or these?
Is it your ego holding on to something because you're afraid of letting go of that comfort? Sometimes you got to get that out of your way to just really see the perspectives that are all there.
Yeah, I think a lot about how much ego gets us into trouble, and we assert ego and then end up, it's what prohibits us from listening to each other.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, so kind of further down that rabbit hole, what does it mean when people throw around the term, library, or the phrase, libraries are a democratic space? And I've had people go, what do you mean by that? It's not a political forum. It's like, well, it's not a political forum by any means, but we're talking about free exchange of ideas, right? So
yeah, did you lift that from me? Because I say constantly
that's a T-shirt I wear sometimes,
and I lifted it from a friend who's an architect. He's a big advocate of libraries. But I say all the time that a library is a community's most democratic space. Everyone is welcome. Just like a culture or a society, there are basic rules to abide by. But so long as you abide by those, you're there. It's a non-monetized interaction. You can do whatever you'd like in the building. You can engage with each other, engage with yourself.
Within reason.
Within reason.
and I did borrow that from you, but I've also seen it. There's a famous quote, and I can't remember now if it was, I don't want to say the wrong name, but there is a famous quote if you go and Google it about libraries being a democratic space. So it's the idea is out there in a number of different ways, and it might be phrased slightly differently,
right.
but we didn't invent it. But it is definitely.
Well, I think it's the problem of how people start applying words and language in the way it's being used modernly. Like they most are probably hearing democratic in the terms of a political party. Yeah,
exactly. That's what I was going to get at.
We are a democratic society.
Yeah, the broadest definition, and to me the most inclusive definition of democratic is it just means a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not City Hall. It's not the White House. It's us as a people interacting with each other.
How do we get along?
Right.
Oh, so we're out of time, but I wanted you to talk about your favorite books. And I know,
there's so many.
Throw a couple of things out there real
Throw
quick,
us a bone.
We're out of time, but
sure.
I have to know.
I'm a big fan of Thomas Merton. His work really inspires me to live a better life and try to connect better with community. Eduardo Galeano is one that has always, he makes me laugh. He handles the iniquity within human history with humor, which is hard to do. But he's a huge hero of mine. It sounds like that's it.
Okay.
Federica says it's a wrap.
We do have a recommended on the air portion on our webpage, so we can add the rest of your book suggestions onto there.
Sounds great. I'd love to.
It's been a fun half hour, Blair. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you all for having me. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. More details at library.austintexas.gov/volumes. And stay tuned to 91.7 for Rock and Roll Pest Control. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Special thanks to our producer, DJ Harris, and to the musicians who composed and performed our original theme song, Andrew Noble on violin, Kirk Duvall on guitar, and Mike Wheat on percussion. And thanks to you, our listeners. Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, airs Wednesday afternoons at 2:30 on Co-op 91.7 FM and KOOP.org. If you catch us mid-show, full episodes and other details can be found at library.austintexas.gov/volumes.